Francis Lawrence's new film The Long Walk, based on Stephen King's book, has just been released in theatres by Lionsgate, and it's one of the very best of the year so far. It's a powerful and emotionally brutal film that succeeds in being something more than just a dystopian spectacle. It makes all the endurance, the moral collapse, and the fleeting human connections matter. If you like stories that test characters to their limit, that don't give easy answers, then I think this adaptation is worth seeing. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of the film, discussing the full plot details, the ending, differences from the book, my review, and much more. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on upcoming releases like the Long Walk movie, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for the Long Walk. So The Long Walk movie, based on Stephen King's original novel that is published under the Richard Bachman name in 1979, tells the same brutal story at their core. It's about a deadly march where boys walk until only one survives. I will be getting into the differences between both the movie and the book towards the end of this video, but let's first get into what happens in the new film. The movie opens in a bleak, authoritarian version of America where the government maintains control through a brutal annual ritual called the Long Walk. 50 teenage boys are drafted, one from each state, and told to walk without stopping at a minimum speed of 3 miles per hour. Anyone who slows down too often receives warnings, and after 3 warnings is executed on the spot. The sole survivor wins a large cash prize and a single wish of their choosing. And among this year's competitors is Ray Garraty from Maine, who quickly notices the grim efficiency of the soldiers enforcing the rules and the cold authority of the figure known as the Major, played by Mark Hamill, who presides over the walk. As the walk begins, the boys treat it like an odd endurance contest, cracking jokes and introducing themselves. That mood quickly ends though when a young boy named Curly, already cramping, falls below the pace too many times and is shot in front of everyone. Soon after, the character Wang attacks Barkovich in a burst of rage and is killed as well. These early deaths shock the boys into truly understanding the death march that this truly is. We learn that Ray Garraty then begins forming connections, particularly with Peter McVries, who shares his own painful childhood story of neglect and abuse. Garraty in turn reveals that the Major personally executed his father years earlier for defying the state, and that if he does eventually win, he intends to use his wish to obtain a rifle and kill the Major. The days begin to stretch on from these early moments, and the walk becomes even more grueling. The boys develop blisters, cramps, and exhaustion from lack of sleep. Some collapse outright, while others are executed for falling behind during bathroom breaks or moments of weakness. The character Olsen, driven mad by the strain, attacks a guard and is eventually gunned down. Barkovich, who is once the most antagonistic of the walkers, eventually asks to be accepted by Garraty's group, but later takes his own life rather than suffering any further. There's also Stebbins, a quiet, enigmatic boy who grows sickly as the miles pile up, and it becomes clear that he is fighting more than just fatigue. And at one point, the walkers pass through a town where crowds line the streets to cheer them on. During one of these moments, Garraty is shaken when he spots his mother in the crowd and almost runs to her, but Pete McVries pulls him back after a warning, saving him from execution. Another one of the walkers, named Parker, briefly rebels, stealing a soldier's rifle and killing one of the guards before turning it on himself. Another contestant, called Baker, suffers internal injuries, collapses and dies. And Stebbins confesses that he is the illegitimate son of the Major and that his only wish was to be recognised by his father. He sits down, too weak to continue, and is killed, leaving the final 2 walkers. Coming to the ending of The Long Walk, the movie concludes with only Garraty and McVries remaining. A crowd has gathered to witness them, and McVries, weary and unwilling to keep going, sits down deliberately, effectively giving Garraty the victory. But Garraty, unable to accept McVries' sacrifice, keeps him walking. On only one warning, he stops walking straight after doing so, costing him his life and giving McVries the win. When asked for his wish, McVries surprises everyone by demanding a soldier's carbine. In front of the watching crowd, he turns the gun on the Major and shoots him, carrying out the revenge that Garraty had dreamed of. In the final scene, McVries walks away alone in the rain, the last survivor of the walk, haunted by everything he has endured and the friends he has lost along the way. So the ending of the Long Walk movie carries a strong thematic message about sacrifice, rebellion, and the cost of survival. Garraty's decision to stop walking so McVries can live shows that even in a system built to pit people against each other, human connection and selflessness still matter. McVries' act of killing the Major transforms the walk from a state-sanctioned spectacle into a moment of defiance, proving that authority can be challenged even at great personal cost. Yet the closing image of McVries walking away alone in the rain underlines the emptiness of his victory. He has survived, but he carries the weight of trauma, loss, and guilt. So thematically, the ending suggests that rebellion is possible and even necessary under oppression, but survival in such a cruel system never comes without scars. It leaves us with a mix of catharsis and unease, as a tyrant is dead, but freedom still feels uncertain. The ending shows that survival in this system isn't liberation. Garraty and McVries have endured, but at such a psychological and physical cost that the prize feels meaningless. The walk was sold as a game, but in reality, it's a machine for breaking young men. By continuing to walk down the road, presumably towards his own death in the future or endless struggle, McVries still shows us that he's been reshaped by the whole ordeal. He no longer remembers how to stop. His victory is hollow because the system has already taken what matters: his health, his friends, his innocence, and even his will to live a normal life while he's alive. There's also a broader social critique baked into the film as well. Hamill's character the Major and some of those who cheer on the walk represent a society addicted to spectacle and violence, turning suffering into entertainment. McVries' endless march at the end reflects how that culture doesn't really give winners or losers, as it just consumes them. So in a thematic sense, the ending lands on a paradox. McVries survives, but he isn't free. He keeps walking because he can't do anything else, and in that haunting last image, the film suggests that trauma, authoritarian control, and the pursuit of survival can outlast even victory. When it comes to the differences between the new Long Walk movie and the book, there is clearly a divergent tone, some narrative details, and overall focus. To begin with, the movie and book both begin in the same way, with Garraty being introduced and meeting other contestants like McVries, Barkovich, Olsen, Stebbins, and Parker. Both versions of the story also establish the grim rules of the walk through the Major, whose cold militaristic presence looms over. The difference is that the movie gives Garraty a sharper motivation from the outset, showing us his desired revenge against the Major for executing his father. In the book, Garraty walks more out of curiosity, pride, and social pressure than a specific vendetta. So in the early stages of the walk, the beats are almost identical. In both, we learn that Curly cramps up and becomes the first to die, and Rank attacks Barkovich and is shot shortly after. In both the novel and the film, these initial deaths serve to strip away the illusion that the walk might be survivable or even noble. But we learn that the movie version moves more quickly into character backstory, giving McVries and Garraty deeper emotional reasons to be walking. The novel allows more wandering conversations and musings that build the bleak tone more gradually. As the walk drags on, the toll of exhaustion, hunger, and the injuries begin to claim lives. In both versions, Olsen snaps under pressure and attacks soldiers before being killed, Barkovich grows increasingly unstable and eventually commits suicide, and the boys wrestle with guilt and despair. However, the book lingers more on the psychological breakdowns and the camaraderie among the walkers, while the movie condenses events into sharper dramatic moments like Parker grabbing a rifle or Garraty nearly running to his mother in the crowd. The mother scene happens in both, but in the novel it is more ambiguous and dreamlike, while the movie stages it as a clear brush with death. Stebbins' role is another key difference, as in the novel, he is a mysterious loner who reveals late in the story that he is the illegitimate son of the Major, walking in hopes of finally being recognised. His collapse is slow, symbolic of wasted ambition. The movie does keep this revelation, but sharpens the emotional stakes by making his sickness more pronounced and his final farewell more intimate with Garraty and McVries. As a whole though, the biggest divergence comes in the ending of both. In King's book, Garraty outlasts everyone, including Stebbins, and becomes the last walker. He is declared the winner, but in a state of delirium, he no longer understands what is happening. Surrounded by cheers, he hallucinates a figure ahead of him and simply keeps walking with his fate left unresolved. The Major is never confronted directly, and Garraty never gets a chance at revenge, meaning that the book ends with more ambiguity and despair. The film, however, changes the climax entirely. Instead of Garraty winning, McVries survives as the final walker after Garraty stops to help him and is executed. McVries is granted the winner's wish, and in a decisive act of rebellion, he requests a rifle and shoots the Major in front of the crowd. The story ends with him walking away alone in the rain, carrying the weight of survival with him. So this ending provides a lot more catharsis, something the novel desperately avoids, turning the story into an act of vengeance and defiance against the system, rather than just a bleak meditation on human endurance and futility. It still has elements of those thematics in there, but it's not just strictly that. But that was my breakdown and analysis for the new Long Walk movie. The Long Walk is one of those films that leaves you unsettled long after the credits roll. The movie captures the brutality of its dystopian setting with stark imagery, whether it's supportive people treating death like sport, soldiers enforcing rules with casual cruelty, and a road that stretches endlessly as both prison and stage. At its best, the film makes you feel the exhaustion of the boys, the claustrophobic press of miles piling up, and the surreal way that suffering becomes normal when it's constant. What makes the adaptation stand out is how it brings more life to the supporting characters than the novel often did. McVries is given bite and humour, Baker is given warmth, Markovich is given menace, and Stebbins is given an eerie sense of inevitability. These relationships help break up the monotony of the march and highlight the way fleeting friendships form under impossible circumstances. Still, the film doesn't shy away from the bleakness of the novel, as deaths are sudden and merciless, and the further the boys go, the clearer it becomes that no one truly wins. By the time Garraty has a chance to win, choosing death instead of claiming his prize, the audience understands the cruel irony in that survival doesn't mean freedom. As a movie, it's not flashy, as there are no big action set pieces or dramatic twists. But the effective horror at the centre of it comes from themes of repetition, fatigue, and inevitability. That makes it a tough watch at times, but also a faithful reflection of Stephen King's themes. Some viewers may find it too grim or too slow because of this, but for others, including me, it's precisely that suffocating pace that makes it also powerful. In the end, I think The Long Walk works less like a thriller and more like a psychological endurance test, one that asks the audience the same question it asks its characters. And that is, how long can you keep going when there is no way out? I think it's now my favourite movie of the year, and I'm eager to see what director Francis Lawrence does next. But I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film, the book differences, and the main details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like The Long Walk, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.